So entrepreneurship is core. So any policy or any maybe even a cultural component that is anti-entrepreneurial or that undermines the entrepreneurial spirit is going to hamper society. Any regulation, I mean, to go back to your previous question, any regulation, what it means is not only that we get less out of the market, but it also means that we transition power from the consumer, who determines which entrepreneur will make money and whether what the entrepreneur does is worth anything at all. We transition this power to politicians instead.
Inconformes, con el Dr. Jorge Díaz Cuervo.
This episode was recorded in English. Per Bylund is a Swedish academic, politician, and libertarian activist. Currently an associate professor and Johnny D. Pope Chair in the School of Entrepreneurship at Oklahoma State University. His research focuses on economic growth, entrepreneurship, and regulation policy. His career spans IT, business consulting, politics, and academia. He holds degrees in business administration and informatics from the Johns Shopping International Business School, a master in political theory from London University, and a PhD in applied economics from the University of Missouri.
Per, welcome to Inconformes, the podcast of Universidad de la Libertad.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Why don't we start? Why don't you tell us how has your experience been here at Universidad de la Libertad? You've been teaching, you've been doing some master classes with our students. What do you think about Universidad de la Libertad and what we're doing here?
I really enjoy it. So I've guest lectured in a couple of courses already and have met a number of the students, I think 3 courses so far. And I like how they are inquisitive, how they're critical, and how they ask questions for not only for clarification, which of course is expected, but also ask questions that are critical and want me to elaborate on what I'm talking about. So I like the pushback.
Great. Last year we published one of your books, How to Think the Economy. Why do you think it is important to understand economic principles? How can we help so that more people understand basic economic principles?
Well, I think there are several reasons. First of all, economics is core to how society works. So not understanding it, or even worse, believing in some of the myths of how it works, is going to lead you astray. It's also going to make you a willing victim, in a sense, for propaganda and lies. So in a sense, it's a way of strengthening your own situation and making you immune to bad ideas. But it's also a way of positioning yourself properly and using it to your advantage. I mean, the whole economy is entrepreneurial. So if you invest for the future, if you invest for your kids, if you want to improve your life and so forth, misunderstanding the economy means that you're probably going to fail. But understanding it means that you have a much greater chance of succeeding.
You mentioned entrepreneurial mindset. How important is it in the market economy, in the entrepreneurial spirit? How important is entrepreneurship in the market economy?
I would say the market economy stands or falls with it.
Okay.
So it's not only the driving force of the economy and what the economy actually delivers and the driving force behind economic growth and prosperity, but the economy is nothing without it. Because the economy is always in movement, it's always in flux, as we say, and it's the entrepreneur who does this. And without an entrepreneurial spirit, society can't really rise to higher levels and increase the standard of living. So entrepreneurship is core. So any policy or any maybe even a cultural component that is anti-entrepreneurial or that undermines the entrepreneurial spirit is going to hamper society.
Do you think all of us have, in some sense, an entrepreneurial spirit, or some people have more? Can you develop entrepreneurial spirit?
I think so. I mean, in a sense, the entrepreneurial spirit is just a matter of wanting to improve your own situation. And
not waiting for someone to solve
exactly.
it.
So it's about being active. And of course, some people are more active than others, but you can teach yourself and you can learn how to not only see opportunities, but also exploit opportunities. I mean, exploitation sounds like a bad word, but exploiting an opportunity just means that you're taking the opportunity that is there and making the best of it. And the way I see it in the market economy, the way to make money is to please as many customers as possible to the greatest degree possible. That's how you make a profit. So the more people do that, the better off we are, all of us.
Exactly. In your recent book, The Seen, the Unseen, you say that the economy is an organism. It's not a machine. What do you mean by the economy is an organism?
In a sense, the economy is an abstraction. I mean, it's all of us together, all our interactions, all our actions, all of this is the economy. We tend to think about it, and when we teach economics, we tend to also display it as a static system, supply and demand. But what we're really missing then is that it's all about people. It's about people and their dreams, their efforts. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it's about all people trying to, together in cooperation with others and also in competition, making themselves better off by serving others. And that's why it's always in flux. So you can't ever say that we're in equilibrium or that we're at a certain state, because it's always changing, just like an organism. And it's adapting to everything that happens around it. It grows and so forth.
And why is regulation like our biggest enemy? Why? I mean, in Mexico, we certainly have too much regulation. What's the effect of regulation in the entrepreneurial mindset of companies, entrepreneurial spirit? How can we understand that regulation is not always good?
Yeah, and very often it's much, much more costly than we think. The way I want to think about it is that an entrepreneur simply makes money by satisfying consumers. So it's not really about changing things and being your own, even though that's a driving force for a lot of entrepreneurs, but it's about figuring out how to serve consumers better than others. A regulation strips the entrepreneur of choices. So any regulation that has an impact means that the entrepreneur cannot pursue the greatest value for consumers anymore. They have to pursue some other opportunity that is of less value for consumers and therefore of less value to the entrepreneur as well. So any regulation strips us of that satisfaction that we could get. And to make matters worse, the economy is a process and it's cumulative. And we know this, of course, that yesterday's cars are worse than today's cars, and today's cars are built off of what we learned about car making yesterday. So if entrepreneurs cannot pursue the better opportunity, that means that the future is going to build off of the lesser opportunity. So we're on a worse trajectory overall for society.
And you also state that the enterprise is part of the market economy. It's not an independent entity. It's how can we better understand this economy as an organism in which individuals and this abstraction, the enterprise, work together to satisfy needs?
Well, I think the way to see it is that the enterprise is, in a sense, a collection of resources, whether it's workers with different competencies, it's a location, it's machines, what have you. And the entrepreneur takes the risk, all of it, and says, I think we can do something new, or we can use these in a different way. But in order to do that, I have to collect those resources first, and then combine them in whatever ways that I think are best. And then most entrepreneurs fail, and they lose their own money in doing this. Or they succeed, and that means that those resources in this combination led by this entrepreneur creates more value than they would have otherwise. And that abstraction, of course, is just a temporary way of discovering what works and how to create more value for consumers.
I'm a strong believer that overregulation or prohibition really what creates is a black market, corruption. For example, with what happens. Mexico suffers a lot with the drug trafficking. Do you see in the future a better way to regulate or to manage the drug market in a different way that it doesn't cause so much harm as it's causing right now?
Yeah, I think in general the market is best under the rule of consumers. So any regulation, I mean, to go back to your previous question, any regulation, what it means is not only that we get less out of the market, but it also means that we transition power from the consumer, who determines which entrepreneur will make money and whether what the entrepreneur does is worth anything at all. We transition this power to politicians instead. And with prohibitions, like in the drug market, then you get cartels and you get criminals, outright criminals, running those businesses because they're in conflict with the law. So the best solution to all of these problems really is to let the consumer become king again, which means deregulating and getting the state out of it, which means you also get cartels out of it.
I think that's the way to solve some of the problems that arise from the drug markets. Per, thank you very much. We really enjoyed your presence here in Universidad de la Libertad.
Thank you so much.
Inconformes es producido en la Universidad de la Libertad.